In a land where cacti outnumber cell towers and the horizon stretches further than a fiber optic cable, it's time for Valley's Bits, Bytes and Banter, the podcast that looks a bit behind the scenes of a broadband provider, takes a big bite out of the tech world, and serves up a healthy dose of banter with people in our community. And now, without further ado, here's your host, Bob Dahlstrom.
Hi, welcome to another edition of Valley's Bits, Bytes, and Banter. Glad you guys are listening and downloaded the podcast. As you can, all our podcasts on podbean.com or on the Podbean app. Just search Valley's Bits. That's the easiest way to find it. Or wherever you get your podcast, you'll find us on there. I am Bob Dahlstrom, as you heard in the front. I'm confirming that. And with my partner in crime, who's the audio engineer, the guru of everything that makes this thing work, Ralph Score.
Madman Harvey.
Yeah. Madman Harvey, otherwise, a.k.a. Madman Harvey.
We haven't talked about Buttery Bob.
No, we have not brought up Buttery Bob. We'll move on from Buttery Bob. Did you know that Wi-Fi is 25 years old this year?
Wow.
Did you know that?
Wow.
And people consider it, I should say, because Steve Jobs in 1999 introduced the first wireless computer for internet.
Is that like the Apple II?
Yeah, he passed, and he at a conference, at a big press conference, big press thing. He passed a hula hoop over it to show. He did. I'm serious. And at the time,
magic.
Lee's laughing. And he did at the time. I was like, "Wow, what is happening here?" And he's still online. He's on, or as you say in the internship. He's on the line.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, now with AI, he's still around. So, and I had, when cell phones first came out, they had that Motorola brick. I used to have to carry a Motorola brick with me for a company I worked for. And I thought, this is great because I can always protect myself with this thing by hitting someone in the head with it.
It was people, and remember the big scare came out about people getting cancer and tumors from using those things?
No, it's getting hit in the head with one.
That was the problem. That was the issue, is you're getting hit with it. It's not anything else.
I want to bring it back. It's the retro look.
Oh, and be protection now, too, as a matter of fact. Well, a lot of people may not know that we used to be a cellular company as well. Valley Telecom did. And our most popular phone at the time were those bag phones. You'd zip them up, put them in the bag. They were very strong. The battery on those and the antenna was strong. All the ranchers in the area loved them because they could be out on their horse in the middle of the field, make a call, no problem. And they always told us, when we told them they were going away, oh my, we almost had to pry it from their hands. I mean, to tell them this technology won't work anymore. Yeah. And they did not want to give it up.
And now look at phones nowadays. It's like it's the supercomputer in your hand.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a picture one time of somebody had all this stuff sitting on the table that in 1980, it's all in your hand now.
Yeah,
on your phone.
Well,
everything, all this stuff sitting there, a big pile.
Remember in the Apollo project when they first brought in computers? Computers were people, right? They were the people that did the spreadsheets and did the math to make things work. And then I remember they had to, for the first computer they brought in, they had to actually remove the door to the room they were going to put it all in because they couldn't get the equipment through the door.
It was so big.
Yeah.
Hey, well, let's talk about something else that I've been dying to bring up, and I don't know, Lee, if you know this. Let's talk about your film, Ralph. We have not talked about your film. You just recently had a showing of it at the...
We did.
And what was the event?
It was our 10th year of the Southern Arizona Independent Film Festival. We had
and
some
you showed
great
it at the
films.
Wilcox Theater.
Yeah, we did. We showed it the night before, and it's called... Ready for this?
I'm ready.
Planet of the Killer Robots.
And this is a movie. It's on YouTube.
It's a feature film.
You can find it on YouTube and watch it.
We named it that because we thought everyone's going to want to see a movie called Planet of the Killer Robots.
Well, you had me at Planet.
Yeah.
It's that title.
Spaceships, ray guns, and robots. It's a lot of fun. It's a kids' movie. We made it out of the lint and spare change in our pockets. That's what we did.
Well, I watched it, and I think you spent too much. But I think it was a great movie. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. But you can find it on YouTube. It's Media Wizard. Is that the account?
It's under Caribou Moving Pictures Presents. I think is what it is. Yeah,
because there were several under there, and I knew. Yeah, that's not it.
Yeah,
that's not it.
There's a trailer under Media Wizard. But
that's what it was.
But the film is
I was like, I know that movie's longer than 2.5 minutes.
And here's the amazing thing is that the director showed up at the screening, and I hadn't seen the director in 20 years, so that was a great reunion.
That is great.
Yeah. So we had a lot of fun with it.
It's a cult classic. I would classify it as a cult classic.
I don't know if it's a cult classic. It's definitely a cult B, movie.
Do you have a favorite cult classic movie or a couple of favorites?
I think that for me, Reservoir Dogs.
That's a good one.
Is one. It's not for everyone.
No, it is not for everyone.
It's not like Home Depot or Walmart. It's not for everyone.
It's not Mr. Blue, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Mine would be, and now it's, it seems like these cult classics all of a sudden have a resurgence, like they become retro later on. But Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, that's a great movie.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Kurt Russell is so over the top in that movie. He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's a great movie.
Well, if I had to have a cast, right? My cast would star Kurt Russell because he's the best secret weapon you could ever have on a picture because he knows everything about making movies too.
Oh, there's a rumor about Tombstone that he actually was the director behind the scenes when they got rid of the other director.
He really did. He took over the whole thing. He got everybody on board with the new director is what it was.
And he wanted to make it about Doc Holliday.
Yeah.
He wanted to be more about Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
So, I did the tour on Mescal's movie set back on the 25th anniversary of Tombstone. And, they have all kinds of backstories they were telling, and they were talking about that.
Yeah.
That was a rumor, but one of those rumors that's pretty true.
I mean, you think about it, Kurt Russell, he's kind of like Ron Howard. He grew up on the sets, grew up as a kid doing it, and learned the craft while he was out doing it.
Doing Disney movies since he was little.
Yeah. So
big time. He's got great movies. I mean, think about it. You could throw out a bunch of movies at Kurt Russell. We'll ask our guest today when we come back about some Kurt Russell movies he may know.
We got a couple things here. Okay, so this is we always talk about the national day it might be, so here's one.
Right.
How about National Caramel Day? And now, okay, how do you pronounce it? And Lee, do you pronounce it caramel or caramel?
I'm caramel.
You're caramel? Bob?
Depends how bougie I'm trying to be. If I'm ordering a drink, I'm going to give me the caramel macchiato. But I like a good caramel like anybody else.
Well, and it's actually correct in both because
really?
in the UK it's caramel, and in the US it's caramel. Yeah. So
I had caramel or caramel this morning in my iced coffee I made at home. Yeah. Yum.
The other thing you may not know is this month is one of my favorites, International Beaver Day. Don't ask me why. It's one of my favorites. But it's one of my favorites.
Okay.
And it's also International Marconi Day. Not Macaroon Day, Marconi Day. And I don't know, for those of you who remember who Marconi was, he's the guy that invented the radio, modern day radio. Yeah.
And made and immortalized by Starship in their song "We Built This City."
Yeah, basically. So
I'm bringing it all back around.
And now I have our water cooler trivia question of the day. And
Okay,
Lee, you can lay on this one too. Okay, ready? Typically considered the successor to dial-up internet access in many American homes, what was the B term for wideband data transmission, which was able to transport multiple signals and traffic types? This replacement technology allowed for always-on and faster internet. The B term.
The B term.
Yeah.
You saying it starts with a B?
That's what it says here.
The B term. Not broadband, right?
Oh, it's broadband. Ding, 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 ding.
Is it really?
Yes, it's broadband.
Ha-cha.
I got to remember that button.
Thank you. High five from Lee. Yeah.
I really got to find that button here.
That's coming around now because it's everybody's starting marketing buzz. No one's using internet anymore. They're trying to use the word broadband because it covers all the technologies. And they think broadband... The broadband wizard just showed up. That broadband may be all encompassing, but it's hard not to think about internet. I mean, you say internet, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But even we're using broadband some now, so that's just kind of the way it goes, right? Things change. Things come back around and around and around. Speaking of around and around, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we're going to introduce our guest, and they're going to have a lot of fun with us here on Valley's Bits, Bytes, and Banter. Be right back.
Valley Telecom Internet keeps you connected at the speed of life. Our fiber optic network provides fast speeds with unlimited data, whether you're gaming, streaming, or downloading your favorite podcasts. To find out what speeds are available in your area, give us a call at 800-421-5711 or go to vtc.net. Life moves pretty fast, and so should your internet. So get connected with Valley Telecom. And don't forget to download the latest episodes of Valley's Bits, Bytes, and Banter, wherever you get your podcasts.
And we're back to Valley's Bits, Bytes, and Banter. I'm Bob Dahlstrom, here along with co-host Ralph Score. Appreciate you guys listening in. And today's guest we're going to introduce, he's a young upstart who graduated from Valley Union High School.
A young upstart. I like that.
You like that? That's a nice call.
Young upstart. I like the young part, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you compare it to our age,
You're right.
You're a young upstart.
we're not old, we're seasoned.
You've ended up being the owner of LDP Production, which is voiceover work. We'll get into that a little bit. Not like you ended up. You started that company.
I did.
And you are advertising and sales and sports director for Double R Communications over at Cat Country, KATO. And you're the source in this area, I believe, for all things local sports. And then some.
I appreciate that.
And not only that, like you don't have any other jobs to do. You're telling me how you're a director on the Southern Arizona Sports Tourism and Film Authority Board.
True.
That's a new project. Hopefully we can touch on today. We all got a lot of things going on. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about Lee Patterson. Lee, how you doing today?
I'm well. Thanks
Good.
for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure we gave you the correct address to
I
get on
heard
down
there-
here.
I heard, you said down the road and then around the corner, and I got here. So
Well, that's how they do that, right? That's
Right.
how we do that.
Yeah,
Old Man Johnson's place that used to be there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That just
it's
means
not
that
there.
you-
It's just past it.
That means that you played street football.
correct.
That's exactly right. And let's talk about playing stuff. What was your high school sports career like over at Valley Union? Because you played baseball, right? I mean,
I played football and baseball over at Valley Union, and baseball more successfully than football.
which one did you prefer?
I was a baseball guy.
Okay.
And so in 98 we were a 1A school. They are still a 1A school now. But
Right.
in 98, we moved up to 2A. And we were actually in the 2A East. Back then it was Thatcher, Duncan, Pima, Wilcox, Benson, Tombstone, and Valley Union.
Man.
Wow.
Murderer's Row.
That was the 2A East. And in our first year in the 2A East, we made it to the state championship game in baseball.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And then lost to Phoenix Christian 7-1. But it was a great run. Graduated nobody off that 98 team and didn't even qualify in 99. So that's sports.
That's high school sports, especially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we brought back the same team. We're going to be stronger than ever. And
Yeah.
it just didn't materialize.
Absolutely.
All right, so what got you here? What turned you into sportscasting? Obviously, you love sports.
I do. Yes.
Not everybody can do sportscasting.
So my radio journey is not the typical radio journey. So after I graduated from Valley Union in 99, I went to Australia and played baseball for that summer. Blew out my arm, and baseball ended. And so I came back home and then came up here to go to Eastern Arizona College. And probably in my sophomore year here, maybe the first semester of my sophomore year, I had the radio on, and they had a help wanted ad on the radio. And I was like, I'm broke. I could use some money.
I qualify.
I believe I know my alphabet. I can count 1 to 10. Let's see what they want. Well, it was an office job. And so I went and applied, and the then general manager called me in and said, before I even left, and said, hey, why don't you come in and talk now? And before I left, they had offered me, it was a part-time office job. Back then, everything was on paper, and we had 10 times the amount of filing cabinets we do now.
Yep.
And so they needed somebody to get the stack of paper from 6 feet tall down to 0 and alphabetize and file. And I was like, I can do that.
I'm your guy.
I can definitely do that. So I started on that, and literally 2 weeks later, I was done with it. And they're like, now what? And I did. I learned the office software billing, and in the radio world, you have to schedule every commercial that's purchased, and it's called traffic. That's the name of that. And so I learned all the traffic and billing software in the office. And a couple of weeks later, maybe a couple of months, maybe it was up to 2 months later, the business manager quit. And so GM called me in and said, hey, you ever thought about being a business manager? At 19 years old, I said, well,
what an opportunity,
I
though.
said, you got to let me finish school. I want to go to school full time. And they said, yeah, you can work. We'll work around your schedule. So for the next 3 semesters, I worked full time and went to school full time. And then the next August came around. So that was in February of 2000. And then the next August came around, and they said, hey, you want to tag along with the Sports Guy? Yeah. We're not going to pay you. Okay, that's fine.
An internship there.
Yeah. So then I did that for a couple of years with the late Ron Keith, who was on the air for many years in the Gila Valley, and did that. And then he ended up as a dean at Eastern Arizona College, and that took him out of he did not have enough time really to do this anymore. And so it turned over to me and took off with it on the sports side. So and then I was still in the office though, doing the sports, working in the office during the day, doing sports at night. And then about 4 or 5, maybe 6 years later, they offered me a sales job. And I said, heck no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. That's commission. That's a bad word.
Yeah. No. I'm good.
So it took a little prodding, and eventually I moved over into the sales office, out of the billing office, and have been there ever since. Now, so that was February 2000 to now.
Wow, we've known each other a while, and I just recently learned out that you played baseball in Australia. I never knew that.
I didn't know that either.
I think that's awesome.
I played with several guys that are in your neck of the woods down in Wilcox.
No kidding.
Yeah. So Russ Bethel was our head coach when we went over there.
Yep, I know Russ.
Rhino was on the team, as was Adrian Fuentes, who's now the current Wilcox baseball coach.
Yeah. Right.
Adam English was my roommate, who's from Wilcox. He lives up in Payson now. So there was a lot of Garrett Douglas, who we all know from Wilcox as well, was on
Garrett,
that trip.
I learned that recently too.
Yeah,
I know Garrett as well.
We were on that trip together. So it was an Arizona team, but we were Team USA in the tournaments that we played in. So it was fun. We had a good time.
What a great experience.
Yeah, and all these years later, I've never been back. So I mean, I'm glad that my parents, who had no money at the time, were able to come up with half of it, made me earn half of it. Which in Elfrida fundraising was fun, and
you
so,
again,
right? And so we went over there. We were gone. I don't know. It felt like we were gone a long time. We probably were only gone 3 weeks, but it felt like we were over there all summer, and we played all up and down the east, up and down Queensland in Australia. So from all the way up in Cairns at the Great Barrier Reef down to Toowoomba, through Toowoomba, and down into Brisbane, and it was a good time.
Nice. Are you involved in baseball right now? High school baseball?
I'm not. I was at one time. I coached.
You were helping Thatcher.
Yeah, I coached at Thatcher for 4 or 5 years. Yeah,
but not anymore.
No.
So I'm not surprised. Look at the things you got going on. We haven't even touched into the personal things.
You got lots of time.
Hobbies and stuff you've got happening. We haven't even touched into that, Ralph.
Yeah.
And he's a busy guy.
So I got a question for you, Lee. So
Okay.
this has to do with a little bit about digital technology. You know, you've been in radio long enough to see that metamorphosis, right, from the analog to the digital. What's the biggest up and downsides for you when it regards that change?
That's a good question. And there's been plenty, even in my 25 years in radio. So when I first started at the stations here, agencies were still sending reel-to-reel with their commercials. So I had to learn to use the reel-to-reel. It was past the record era that they were using carts and tapes then, but we're using that. And for me personally in sports, when I first started, I used one of those bag phones that you guys were talking about.
Because they had a big, powerful antenna.
They had a huge antenna, and we would use it. But when I used the bag phone, I didn't have any monitor in my ear, so I had no idea how loud I was, which is still the case. But but then we moved. Then I started to carry 2,000 feet of phone cord on a reel with me, and we would either have to get a phone installed in the press box by Quest or whoever it was at the time,
right?
Or if some schools that had media regularly would have jacks for you. But the craziest story I have, I was at Miami High School, and they didn't have any jacks in the booth, or they did, but the local station was using it, and they had first dibs on it. They had paid for it, so they got first dibs when they were there. That's fair.
Right.
Well, they put me on top of the press box. I had to string my cord through the trees of the parking lot to the principal's office, 1,500 feet away, and there was not enough cable that I could see the near sideline. So I was like,
just really barely. You don't want to fall off, but
anything on the near hash in to the sidelines, I couldn't see. So
wow.
But so hardware stuff that is. And nowadays, everything's on a server and their MP3 files, and small town radio sounds so much bigger because it's so much smoother. You have the same technology as the big guys have because it's just a big server, and the stations just pull the audio when they're ready to play. The downside is there's not as many jobs for entry level jobs at radio stations. So that the give and take is there, but that's the biggest ones in my.
Do you think
eyes.
part of that is the automation and
definitely
the syndication stuff? Maybe.
Yeah, automation is that's the only way that small town radio can survive. Really, I mean,
It's only cost effective way.
Automation is a beautiful thing for us. I mean, we're able to load. I mean, obviously the guys on the air are live. They're just not in our studio, but they're also on 200 other stations at the same time. So, it's the life that radio is living in right now. But the nice part about radio is it's in this market, at least, is it's still relative. So,
right. That's very true. It still works here as it does anywhere else. Now let's talk about your own radio show. We're talking about that Overtime that you have that plays on KATO, right? 12:30 a.m. And is it on sabbatical right now because
it is
high school sports
we on the radio we only broadcast football and basketball, and we use it as a preview of our week's broadcast and a wrap up of last week's, and every now and again we have a coach or two on it, but. So once we stop broadcasting, we kind of put it on sabbatical. So it'll come back in 2 weeks before football season kicks off, early August. I think the first football games this year are August 18th. So it'll probably be August 4th, 5th, whatever the first Wednesday of that month is.
I saw an early preview of the Wilcox High School varsity schedule. And you're right. It's right around then. 18th is when it starts. But let's talk a little bit about local sports. Let's get into that a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, why not? You are the authority on this. I mean, you know more than anybody in this area what's going on and who's going to be better next year, who's going to be going on. AIA, any big changes coming up that you know of that anybody needs to be aware of in any sport? Football, for example?
Nothing in football. Basketball next year will be the first year of the 1A through 3A Open Basketball Championship. So the top 16 teams, 1A through 3A, will go to their own tournament. Like they do with the big schools now. So they'll sort it by their PowerPoint ranking, and if you're in the top 16, you will go to a whole separate tournament, and then if you lose before the semifinals, you'll bump back down into your regular conference tournament. So that's how their format's going to work this year. So my guess is it's going to be mostly 3A schools, a couple of private 2A and 1A schools in that field. So.
I would concur. I'm sure that's exactly what's going to happen.
And just based on history, like this year, I saw all the 1A, 2A, 3A playoffs. The private school that won 2A would compete in the 3A level, and the private schools that were in the 1A state championships would both compete in the 2A level. So it's going to be a mostly private school open championship, which I think will help to diffuse the public versus private problem that the rural schools have. Is
a little more balanced,
bit more balanced, because those guys are going to be going to that tournament. I mean, traditionally, those guys are going to be going to that tournament every year, and the 4 teams in that open championship will probably be private schools,
right? And
so that leaves a chance for some of these smaller rural schools to win, a 1A, 2A, or 3A championship. Right. So.
Yeah, that's
sense. That's the biggest change for next year. Football schedules are all just flipped from last year, home and aways. So there's not a huge change. I mean, a bunch of coaching changes, but not any schedules.
I look forward to. We're planning on having you go on fairly regularly, so we can talk more high school sports as they change. So we'll talk in the fall about football. I want to get into that.
Awesome.
But we're at our first break, and when we come back, we're going to really get into some of the passions, and the recent trip you took, I think, is awesome. We're going to talk about that right after this break. Stick around.
Join Bob Dahlstrom and Ralph Score right here as they provide a look behind the curtain of a broadband provider on Valley Telecom's new podcast, Bits, Bytes, and Banter. In every episode, they will take a bite out of the tech world and provide a healthy dose of banter with people in our community. Plus, they'll share funny stories and a bit about what is going on in their worlds. Look for Valley's Bits, Bytes, and Banter on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And we are back. Bob Dahlstrom here with you, Valley's Bits, Bytes, and Banter, and Ralph Score with our guest, Lee Patterson. And Lee, I was going to ask you to pick our question of the day, but I'm going to ask you one that came up in one of our other podcasts. We were talking about movies and cult classics, and there's an actor we think any movie he's in, he makes it better. So I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite Kurt Russell movie?
Man, I knew you guys were going to bring up movies, and you have got the wrong guy for movies.
Kurt Russell. Hopefully that'll narrow it down.
What's your favorite sports movie with Kurt Russell?
Oh my gosh, let's narrow it down.
Here's my favorite movie of all time, Tommy Boy.
Oh, God. That's a classic. You can't. Okay. All right.
Okay.
We'll allow it.
Nothing
judge.
more need
It'll
be
be allowed.
said. That's right.
Tommy Boy.
A lot of people go to school for 7 years. They're called doctors.
Brothers don't shake hands. Brothers gotta hug.
Yeah. What a terrible, funny movie, though.
Oh, yeah. It's so wrong, but so funny. So hilarious. Okay. I didn't mean to put you on the spot with the Kurt Russell movie.
Not a movie guy at all.
The correct answer to that is the Big Trouble in Little China movie or Tombstone.
See, the problem is the time that you would usually go to watch a movie, sporting is on. So.
Yeah. Well, like you said, like we've established, you're a busy guy. It's not like you have a whole lot of time.
Thank goodness for streaming.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, thank goodness for technology and
broadband providers.
Oh,
That's right. That's right.
See how I tied
I
up
like
you
that.
like
You got
that.
that right back,
We
especially those with
appreciate it.
unlimited data.
I think you should ask Lee the question of the day. I really do.
All right, well, let's do it. All right, Lee, this is how we're going to do it. We have 7. Well, should I do the 6? Should I narrow it down?
Yeah, let's do. Yeah,
We have 6 questions you can choose from.
Okay.
You don't know what they are. All you have to do is pick a number between 1 and 6, and we'll ask you the question.
Let's go with 5.
Question number 5. Here you go.
You're laughing already. I don't know that I'm prepared for this.
I don't know if I'm prepared for this. What strategy would you use to fight against 15 angry sheep in a field?
I'm from Elfrida. You act like we haven't done this before.
Well, you're the perfect man to ask this question to. That's just kind of fate how it worked out. So there's a question for you.
You work harder, not smarter. I mean, smarter, not harder. You just go open the gate to the food and they just run around. But
That's a perfect answer.
I mean, the thing is, you can just grab them and throw them. So, I mean, 15 angry sheep. Did you guys play like Mad Libs to come up with that question?
No, I had some time one night. I had some time and then to give them some questions. But that's excellent strategy. I like that.
I mean,
distract them with the food or throw them in there.
It works. It works for me. So,
okay. Excellent. Good job answering that. All right, let's get into some of. I don't know how you have any room for these passions and hobbies that you have, Lee, with all that you have going on. But I want to talk about one right away.
Okay.
And I think this is the second time you've done this, or is this the first time you started your bucket list travel to go visit baseball stadiums around the country?
It was the biggest chunk out of it. We had only done one other stadium, but other than Chase Field until now. So yeah, this was a 4-stadium trip.
Yeah, you just set up a trip. You went online, set it up, and visited how many stadiums in a day? How many games did you go to?
We went to 4 Major League Baseball games. We flew to Pittsburgh and saw opening day, Pittsburgh against Baltimore in the snow. And then we drove to Canton, Ohio, and went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
That's
then
awesome.
drove
I'd love to.
up to Cleveland, and it was actually on my birthday, so they did an eclipse for me. I got to see the total eclipse, which was not high on my I'd like to see a total eclipse list until I saw the total eclipse,
and
I was like, I'm glad
way
I
up
was
on your list.
Yeah, I'm glad I was here.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Then we watched opening day in Cleveland later after the eclipse. Drove down to Cincinnati and watched Cincinnati and Milwaukee in the rain after a 2-hour rain delay. And then drove up to Detroit and watched Detroit and the Twins in 45-degree weather and 30-mile-an-hour winds. So we saw it all.
Yeah, you did. You felt all the Midwestern weather at one time.
We really did. And
in one trip.
And we went through the Heinz Museum in Pittsburgh. We went to the Henry Ford Museum in Detroit. So we got a little history on the way as well. So.
But did you go to Primanti's?
I did go to Primanti Brothers.
Yeah.
Good
was
man.
the first meal we had when we got into Pittsburgh. So
yeah.
And we went to the one on the strip in the Strip District, the original one. So
yeah.
it was I liked it. My wife thought it was okay, but it was I liked it.
That's awesome, man. Talk about fate. That was the trip you were meant to take, man, because you saw the eclipse on your birthday and all the weather and Primanti Brothers.
It was in as many moving parts as there were in that 12 days. It went exactly how we had planned it, so it was good.
And considering everything that went on, but I'm sure you're back and you're like, I can't wait to do this again.
No, we've already started planning leg 2.
Yeah.
So where is it? Where are the next stops?
Well, I mean,
any
depends. The next quick one would be Memorial Week in Anaheim and San Diego.
Oh yeah,
just a quick one. But other than that, I'd like to get the Northeast taken care of because it's easiest to get the most. From you can get up there
proximity.
From the proximity.
Yeah.
So that's probably the one we'll look at next.
Well, it's kind of like what you just did, right? The ones that are fairly close to each other that you can hit in a short amount of time.
Right. Yeah.
Do those first.
Yeah. That was kind of our plan. We tried to sneak Toronto in on this trip, but it's just kind of like,
it's Canada, what the heck?
One run up there counts, I think, for 0.7 runs is all it is in baseball.
It's like the dollar.
Don't know that, Yeah, that's correct. But you do like to travel in general, right?
Do,
You're a big traveling guy. You and Amanda, your wife.
Yeah, me and my wife, we've been on 9 cruises.
Wow,
and
nice.
And seen every Caribbean island, and this last one went to South America, been to Alaska, and haven't gone overseas yet, but over to Europe, but it's somewhere down the list. So
over the pond.
Now that we're a baseball trip couple, it'll be
that's gone on the back burner.
It's been on the back burner.
Did Amanda enjoy it?
She did. Actually, she's a baseball fan from way back too. So
That's awesome.
Her favorite player growing up was Fred McGriff. So that's how far
crime
back.
dog.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how far back she goes when he was first baseman for the Atlanta Braves. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And don't forget, the next time you're going cruising, remember kayaking with orcas. Now that's some cruising.
That's next level adrenaline.
just
Yeah, I won't do the noise because it'll blow everybody's ears out right now on the podcast. But and you like all things sports. I mean, you collect sports cards, right?
I do. I have for a long time.
And you've given me some. I really appreciate those Vikings cards I got.
I have given you some Vikings cards because they're useless to me and most people.
But precious to Bob.
Precious.
Although he's not there anymore. I gave you
half
Kirk
the guys
Cousins
you gave me the cards aren't there anymore.
Yeah,
Kirk Cousins is in Atlanta.
Right.
I don't want to talk about that.
At least I've been collecting cards forever, but then during COVID, when there was nothing else to do and cards got hot again, I got way back into cards. And asked my wife, I got way too far back into cards. I've been collecting cards. I buy, sell, trade, swap, send them off to grade. It's
right.
Matter of fact, I just got notification that my latest grading bunch just arrived at the house. So
technology is wonderful,
isn't it? I know. So that takes up some of my time as well.
So Amanda's going to be really happy talking with you tonight.
What's that?
Amanda's going to be really happy talking with you.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Here's the question. Have you found and got any Fred McGriff cards for your wife?
Yes, I do have. She has a stack of Fred McGriff cards, so
man.
I pull each and every one of those out.
Good job. Good call.
Yeah.
And you've gotten into disc golf.
Also another COVID find. Yes.
Because there's an actual course in Thatcher.
We have breaking news, 2 courses now.
Oh, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
So we have I found disc golf in the middle of COVID, looking for something to do, and there was a small group of guys that played out here at the fairgrounds. And Safford had a 9-hole course, homemade baskets from a guy from here that wanted to play, was into disc golf. There wasn't one here, so he made them himself. He made the baskets himself, and they are still out there. Actually, there's still, I think, 6 original baskets out on the course. There's 18 baskets now out at the fairgrounds. Then we decided to form the club as a nonprofit.
Nice.
And in the last year and a half, formed a nonprofit, got some grants, and purchased 18 more baskets for a new course as well, which is out at Discovery Park on an EAC campus. So over on Discovery Park Boulevard. So it's a rough course now. There's still some things to clean up, but it's baskets are in. So
wind averse. Maybe a little bit of the wind gets in the way.
Yeah.
A little challenge.
So, when you're throwing 140-gram disc in 15 to 30 mile an hour winds, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
Okay, so real quick, if somebody wants to get in on disc golf, and join maybe the group or the league, how do they do that?
So on Facebook, we've got Gila Valley Disc Golf Club, also GilaValleyDiscGolfClub.com. And it's got our league schedule, and on our Facebook page, it's more active where when people are going out and playing around, they'll post that they'll be out there and can join in and check it out.
Very nice. They can find you on Twitter at Radio Guy AZ99.
That is true.
And that's so small. Overtime with Lee Patterson. You have a Facebook page. You can follow along on there.
Absolutely.
And Lee, we appreciate you being a guest on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And we hope you can come back in a little bit in the fall. We'll talk high school football.
I will never say no.
I appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be the end of our episode. Just want to remind everybody you can find Valley's Bits, Bytes, and Banter wherever you find your podcasts, including at podbean.com or on the Podbean app. Just search Valley's Bits, and there you go. Also, if you want to email us with comments, suggestions, questions, podcast at teamvtg.net is where you would do that. We appreciate you tuning in and listening. That's going to do it for us, guys. We'll see you next time.